David, President Biden said today he's sending in experts on hostage intelligence and planning to Israel, but no extraction teams. Are we really going to leave all of this up to the Israelis when it comes to American hostages in Gaza?
Well, I think that's the first step is he's sending in experts that can negotiate for hostages. But frankly, I'm not sure that's going to be all that helpful because I don't think Hamas is going to negotiate at this point. And of course, the primary goal of Israel is to retaliate against the militants, to degrade their military capacity as much as possible and as quickly as possible. But as Chris mentioned, they have to be very careful because there are Israeli hostages among the people of Gaza Strip. I've been in Gaza. I spent a week there. It's a very densely populated place. 2 million people are there. Many of the buildings are run down and dilapidated, and there are civilians interspersed with militants. And so this is going to be a very complicated operation. Could the U.S. ultimately send special forces specifically with the goal of helping rescue the American hostages who are in Gaza? I think that's a possibility. Certainly, there are probably the Pentagon is probably already planning out scenarios like that, but we don't know if there's any plan to do that yet, and that might be a ways off.
Yeah, Colonel, how do we even know? How would we even find out? How would we even learn where the hostages are? As David just described Gaza, it's not only densely populated, one of the most densely populated pieces of Earth, there's tunnels, there's all sorts of back alleys. How would we even begin to figure out, whether it's Israeli intelligence or U.S. intelligence, where these hostages are?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and really, it's at this point there's virtually no way to know that, and you have to expect that as sophisticated and well planned and thought out as this whole operation has been from the beginning, probably months and in some respects possibly years in the planning, is that they also plan for what to do with those hostages. They probably have them in areas that are hidden away, spread out throughout the Gaza Strip so that they can't all be captured together. They'll be probably have their egress routes under surveillance. They'll have booby traps probably put in some of the areas so that if there are any special forces that they'll be tripled by that. So there's really no good way to even start this. And you have to have good intelligence before you even plan an operation. But then because it's in the middle of this 2 million people, there's just no way you can approach it without being seen. So I just don't see any prospect in the near term that there's even going to be a possibility of a rescue.
Yeah, David, we rely, the Israelis rely, the CIA relies on signals intelligence and human intelligence. And obviously there was a catastrophic failure of intelligence leading up to this attack. But in this case, we've got Gaza. There's no power. We've cut off all communications. We've cut off all supplies. There isn't even any way to get human or signals intelligence out of there now.
Right. That's another issue that we're contending with. And I would also mention that, Gaza is not a place where the U.S. and our intelligence agencies have spent a lot of time focusing on because we have such a strong alliance and partnership with Israel and with the Israeli Defense Forces and Israeli intelligence. We rely on them to cover that. So we're not well equipped to deal with the terrain, the geography, and the situation in Gaza. But that doesn't mean that a U.S. Special Forces group couldn't get up to speed quickly in order to support Israeli special forces. We just don't know. But the Hamas militants took these hostages for a reason, that they planned this out, and they did it so that they could, because they expected an overwhelming offensive and retaliation by Israel, and they're going to use them as human shields. And that's the primary problem with all of these operations, whether by Israeli Defense Forces or by U.S. forces, is that we could endanger the people we are trying to rescue.
In the meantime, Colonel, Israel appears to be on the brink of a ground invasion of Gaza. They're amassing troops. They've called up now 360,000 reservists. A ground invasion will be a bloodbath. Urban warfare is brutal.
Yeah, it has. And, we've seen the most recent example of that is Bakhmut in the Ukraine-Russia war, where it took Russia 9 months to capture that thing. And it was only 70,000 people inside. It was a relatively small issue. And to try to go into something this big now that is stuffed with people, because Bakhmut was almost emptied of people before it started. This one is full. And Israel cannot just go in there and literally start leveling the place because they can't just wantonly kill innocent people in the process of doing that. Now, it's also complicated by the fact that Israel has not planned for this, and to knock out a big operation of this magnitude that's got to be coordinated, it takes a lot of time to prepare and a lot of time to train, and Israel's had none of that. So they may have a pretty steep learning curve, and the casualties could be even higher at the beginning.
All right. None of these are good options. All of them very, very tough with enormous consequences. Lieutenant Colonel David Davis, David Tafuri, thank you so much, both of you, for being here with your expertise tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.